It's time for Who's Who Tonight. Interesting topics, fascinating people. And now, your host of Who's Who Tonight, Mark Bishop.
Tonight's guest is from Staten Island, New York. While in his teens, he came to the attention of legendary music mogul Don Kirshner. Although he is well known as a producer for artists like Barry Manilow, Ray Charles, Pat Benatar, and Cher, he's more famous for his vocal talents as lead singer of the animated cartoon group The Archies, racking up numerous top 10 hits. Will you please welcome musician, singer, songwriter, and producer, Mr. Ron Dante. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, Ron, you grew up in Staten Island, correct?
Yes, I did.
And what's your family background?
Well, it's Italian-American. Been there a long time. My dad was one of 7 brothers. My mom was one of 5 brothers and sisters. And there was always music in the houses. Everywhere we went, my father loved to sing. My uncles loved to sing at weddings, everywhere we went. But nobody did it professionally. So I was filled with the bug at a young age. And growing up in Staten Island, great music place, lots of nice clubs, a lot of music, a lot of appreciation for music, and especially pop music. Grew up with pop music in the house. My dad was a huge record fan, bought these big 78s and played them constantly in the 50s. And that's where I became exposed to pop music.
Now, Ron, legend has it that it was a childhood injury to your arm which caused you to take up guitar. Tell us about that.
Well, I was a pretty active kid, always playing baseball and football and running on the ice and climbing trees as a kid. And one of the trees I climbed, I fell out of and busted my arm up pretty badly, and especially my wrist. And the doctor said, you need an exercise for that wrist or it's going to be stiff the rest of your life. So it was either squeezing a ball or playing an instrument, and I was a huge fan of Elvis Presley, so definitely a guitar was in my future. My dad, for my birthday, got me a guitar and a little amplifier, and I started to play guitar, all because of that one injury.
And as they say, and the rest is history.
Well, it never left my side. My guitars are always by my side.
Now, I understand that Ron Dante is actually not your birth name.
No, I was born with a very Italian name, Carmine Granito, and at the time, when in the early 60s, most of the pop artists of the day had changed their name, especially the Frankie Avalon, Bobby Rydell, James Darren. Everybody had a different name. They changed it to a more anglicized, a little more commercial, a little more accessible to the public at the time. If I was starting out today, I would have never changed it, because I'm proud of my name, my family name. But I decided about 14 years old to change my name and make it Ron Dante.
Now, Ron, tell us how you started out with your professional career.
As a kid, I started to play clubs. My dad got me a manager who took me up to the famous 1650 Broadway across the street from the Brill Building. His age, he was in that building, and I got to meet a lot of different people in the elevators, in the stairs, in the lobbies, in the coffee shops. And one of the secretaries decided to introduce me to the Don Kirshner office when I was about 16 years old. And I fortunately got in, and they let me audition. I had written a song and sang it for Don Kirshner's staff, and they loved me. They took me in to see Mr. Kirshner, who was the hottest publisher in show business at the time.
Absolutely.
Nobody had as many hits as he did with teenagers. So he signed me right away. Within a week, I was working for Don Kirshner's publishing firm as a singer-songwriter demo maker. I would sing backgrounds and leads for other writers who were signed to the Kirshner publishing companies, such as Carole King and Jerry Goffin, Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, Howie Greenfield and Neil Sedaka were there. Tons of talented people were there, and I would either sing lead or background on some of their demos to get my experience in. Of course, at night I'd be writing my own little songs and demoing those. So that was like an incredible opportunity to learn the music business from the ground up.
Now, you were involved with the 60s parody band, The Detergents.
Yes, I was. That was kind of I was singing backgrounds in many records, and one of my friend's uncles was a hit songwriter, and he had put together this parody of Leader of the Pack, the Shangri-La's #1 record. And it was a perfect record to parody because it had crashes in it, it had motorcycles starting. It's a very interesting record, very well produced by Shadow Morton, and written by a great writer, Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich. So when we parodied it, we didn't think it was going to be a hit, but it ended up being a pretty big hit, went almost top 10, and sold almost 1 million records. And they named the group the Detergents out of nowhere, and my friends Danny, Jordan, and Tommy Wynn and I went on the road for about a year with the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars, singing that song. In fact, the Shangri-Las were often on the shows with us. So it was a wonderful time, and we were like the first Weird Owls. We were the first people to get out there and parody, really do a great parody song that all the radio stations just loved.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 19.
So you were 19 years old and working for one of the biggest people in the industry, Don Kirshner. So I guess your first capacity with Don Kirshner was to work in the studio, correct?
Actually, he signed me as a singer-songwriter as a kid, and we kept in touch all those years. He gave me the opportunity to learn from his professionals who were working there a little older than I was, Carole King and Neil Sedaka and Tony Orlando. So that's where I worked every day. We'd come in from Staten Island, take the ferry, the train, and the bus to get to the offices and learn my craft. But Don was the genius behind it all. He was my mentor.
So, Ron, at this point, how did you get involved with the Archies?
Well, I had heard that Don Kirshner was doing another kind of monkey show, only this time it was animated with the comic book characters, the Archies. And I heard they were looking for a lead singer for the group, for the TV show. So I called Donnie up, and I went up and I sang a few of the songs that had been written for the Archies, and they hired me that day. They said, "We love your voice. You'll be the voice of Archie." The songwriter was Jeff Barry, again, who was one of the top writers. He and Ellie Greenwich were top teams of the 60s. So I knew we had a great shot at a hit song. So that's the way I became involved in the Archies. We did a bunch of years, like 4 years of cartoon music, and it seems like the people didn't care about the Archies. They cared about the Archies, but they didn't even know it was an animated group a lot. They just heard the music and loved that.
So your first big hit with the Archies was Sugar Sugar.
Yes. Actually, we had a couple of records out before that. We had a hit called Bang Shang-a-Lang, which came out with the debut of the show. That did pretty well, went top 20, and then we needed another hit after that. And I remember Don Kirshner called Jeff Barry, and Jeff Barry said, "Well, I'll write it with a friend of mine, Andy Kim." And they came up with this song, Sugar Sugar. And we recorded it one night, and Sugar Sugar went around the world as a #1 song and record. It was the #1 record in Billboard of the whole year for 1969. And I was lucky enough to be the voice.
Now, I understand the next hit that you had with the Archies, Jingle Jangle, a lot of people were under the impression that it was a female singer that recorded that.
It was. Actually, it was a combination of myself and Miss Toni Wine, the girl singer who did the Betty and Veronica voices. She sang the ad-libs, I sang the body of the song, but they had recorded it in too high a key, so I had to use my falsetto voice. And I figured it's a cartoon. I can use any voice I like because you never know who's singing in the cartoon group. So yes, but that was me most of the record with Tony doing the ad-libs. It was a fun record, and it was again written by Jeff Barry and Andy Kim, and it sold 1 million. I have a gold record on my wall for Jingle Jangle, the follow-up to Sugar Sugar, which I love to do in person because it's so much fun. But I do it in a lower key nowadays. I don't think it's so high.
Now, Ron, at the same time, you had another hit song, Tracy, under the group name The Cufflinks.
Yes, I was still singing for different people. Tracy was written by the same guys who wrote Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. And they wrote the parody leader of the Laundromat, Paul Vance and Lee Pockris. Very, very talented writer, producers, very, very talented. And they asked me to come in and listen to a song, and I loved the song Tracy. I said, I can sing this. We worked on it. I put about 20 voices on there to make it sound like a group. And it's funny, at the same time Sugar Sugar was #1, Tracy was like number 10. So I had like 2 records in the top 10 at the same time under different group names, which I don't think has ever been done before.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
I was very fortunate.
Now, Ron, I have to ask you, At this time in your career, you were known for your singing voice, but you were kind of an anonymous artist. Was that frustrating for you?
It was okay. It was okay because I went into the Archie project knowing that I would be anonymous, that it was a cartoon visual. But I had been anonymous for years before that, singing commercials that everybody had known for Coke and Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, American Airlines. I did dozens and dozens of commercials where I was the lead voice of the group, and people, just liked my voice. So I was kind of used to it. But after about a year, Mr. Kirshner at the time told me I would be anonymous for the Archies, but after about a year, he would give me a solo album to do, and then he would expose the entire, the fact that I had been the voice of the Archies. So the frustration wasn't huge because I knew I would get my shot as a solo artist, and which I did. Don Kirshner came through on his promise.
Yes, and that became your first solo album, correct? Ron Dante Brings You Up.
Correct.
Now, Ron, during the beginning of your solo career, were you still producing commercials?
Absolutely. I was doing everything. My life was full of music and sessions from morning to night, and I was happy, and I knew that was a window of opportunity that would last a certain amount of years, and I tried to take advantage of everything that came my way. I very rarely said no to a session, so I kept very busy. And it was a very fruitful time for me because I got to sing thousands of commercials and lots of records and put out a lot of what was my creativity in my singing, and I was very happy to be in that situation. I took everything, and that's my advice to young singer-songwriters, producers, anybody: take everything you can and make opportunities where there are none.
And then, as if you weren't busy enough, then you started a career as a producer.
It was a natural evolution. After being in the studio with so many professionals, I developed my own style of producing. I produce from a singer's point of view. I try to always envision the track supporting the singer and making what the singer does even better. So I developed that kind of a style, and a lot of people would come to me and say, will you produce me, will you produce me? And I was very fortunate that I ran into a couple of very, very talented people, and produced them and started their career.
And the one artist you're probably best known for is Barry Manilow. How did you start producing for Barry?
Barry was a fortunate accident. I was booked for a commercial, and it was for a new product from Pepsi, a kind of a test product, and the arranger was Barry Manilow. And he had been in commercials a little while, and I walked in the studio, and he had a great arrangement of this song that he had written for this commercial, and he was going to sing background with me. And the background group on this particular commercial was Barry Manilow, Melissa Manchester, Valerie Simpson of Ashford and Simpson, and me. So it was what a beautiful lineup of singers, and we did a great job on it. Unfortunately, the product didn't sell, but Barry knew of me, knew I'd had hit records. I was doing commercials. And he asked me, he said, I'm a songwriter. I would like to, can I play you some of my songs? So we got together afterwards, and he played me 3 or 4 of his songs that he was composing. And one was Could It Be Magic? And I almost fell off my chair. It was so good. And I just knew that this fella had a huge career in front of him. So we went into the studio almost immediately and started to record. We did a showcase in Manhattan and got a record company to come in and sign us up. And that started Barry's career. And about a year and a half later, Mandy came out, and that was the beginning of a 40-year career for Barry. It was a wonderful experience to work on all those albums. We did about 8 to 10 albums together, and had 18 singles in a row that were hits, along with tons of album sales. So it was a very, very good thing to happen to both of us.
And you actually performed on a lot of Barry's productions, correct?
I actually sang backgrounds with Barry on almost all his hits and all his albums. If you hear a group in the background singing answers or doing something, it's usually Barry and myself singing multi-tracked. And sometimes we added girls to the mix to give it a different sound. But no, I sang on every one of his hits, from Mandy to Copacabana to I Write the Songs. In fact, if I write the songs, this big choir that's behind Barry on it is just Barry and myself, multi-tracked about 20 or 30 times.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, as we said earlier, you are also a songwriter. And you've written songs for Gene Pitney, Bobby Darin, James Darin, Bobby V.
I was very lucky to be a part of their careers. Jay and the Americans recorded my songs, Johnny Mathis, Gary Lewis and the Playboys, along with Bobby V and James Darin, a whole bunch of them. I was very fortunate. I worked with great publishers who got my songs to the artists. And at that time, a lot of the artists did not write their own songs, so they were always looking for the next hit to be written for them. And I was very fortunate that as a songwriter, I had songs recorded by many, many major stars, and I was on all their hit albums. So it was a great adjunct to my songwriting and my producing, because it made me understand what songwriters have to go through to write a song and then get it to the producer and then get it to, have it on someone's album. I understand how much work they put into it. So when I was producing Barry Manilow, I understood that the songs that were submitted to us were coming from the hearts of these songwriters, and it meant a lot if we recorded one of them. And many of our hits were outside songs for Barry, like Mandy or Looks Like We Made It. So we were very fortunate I was very fortunate to have that experience. It helped me as a producer.
Now, Ron, you also produced and written songs using numerous different names through the years, as in Bo Cooper, C.G. Rose, Ronnie and the Dirt Riders. Was that a strategic thing to use different names?
You know what it is? As a studio singer and demo singer, you sing songs for songwriters. You go in, they pay you, and you sing their song, make it sound really good. And some of these demos are produced so well that they become records. So the writers end up asking me, could we put this out? And I said, well, you can't put it out under my name. Maybe you can use a group. And people came up with these group names. So I must have been about 20 different groups and artists over a 10, 15-year period. And it was fun. Nobody else was doing anything like that. Only one fella in England, Tony Burrows, who had Love Grows Where My Rosemary Goes, Beach Baby, unbelievable, United We Stand. He was 5 groups. He was like the English Ron Dante. But no one else in America was really doing this group thing where you could put, make different singles. It was a big singles market then, so you didn't have to do a whole album usually. You just do a few singles and see if it works.
Yeah, and it must be hard to keep up with all the different names that you've used.
I'm very lucky, and some of those group names were really funny. The $2 Question, or the Pearly Gate. I was a ton of groups.
Is that a contract thing that you can't use your own name?
That happens sometimes, yeah. Nowadays, you can't be the lead singer of some group and then go record for another group. You're tied in because there's such big money involved.
Now, other artists that you worked with Cher, correct?
Yes, I did. I worked with her on the Take Me Home album. That was a delight. What a professional she was, and a down-to-earth woman, and fun to be with, and sang so beautifully in the studio. She showed up every day and worked 5 or 6 hours vocally, and never a complaint. She was just happy to be making music.
Yeah, my wife is a big Cher fan for sure.
Yeah, she's a great lady.
Now, you also worked with John Denver.
I did 2 or 3 sides with him for a TV show, and found him to be one of the strongest singers I've ever worked with, besides Manilow. He had this great sound live, very strong singer, could sing all night and never get hoarse, and just his pitch was perfect. He was a joy to work with, and I was very impressed with his singing. Very impressed.
Now, here's one for all the 80s rockers out there. Tell us about your work with Pat Benatar.
I was the first one to take her into the studio. She was down at a club in New York City. She was singing a little bit of Catch a Rising Star, which is a comedy club. They did music once in a while. And her record company, Chrysalis Records, called me in to take a look at her one night. And I went to see her, and she was singing different types of music, not rock and roll, but then she did You Better Run by the Rascals. And I loved that song. I said, well, this is an area she could really be hot in. They wanted me to do like a big ballad with her, like a Manilow ballad for a girl, and I wanted to do a rock and roll thing with her. So we went into the studio, and we cut 3 sides with her. I produced You Better Run, Heartbreaker, and Crying by Roy Orbison. That was the only ballad we did, and all 3 sounded like hits. And Heartbreaker and You Better Run, and we just launched her career. She was also a very performing type of artist. She was not used to the studio, so after the first vocal session, I realized I had to build a little stage in the studio, put up a spotlight, and invite a small audience to watch her sing. And then she came alive and did a great job on You Better Run and Heartbreaker. But that's the way some artists need a little extra.
So, Ron, you're saying that Pat Benatar was not originally a rock artist?
No, not at all. She was doing jazz, she was doing big ballads, and she did one rock and roll piece. I saw her was with a good friend of mine from WPLJ, Jim Kerr, and he said, I think she's going to be a star. He's really the one who touted me on her to produce, because I was pretty busy at the time producing a lot of people. But I really thought Pat had it. I was very impressed with her. Her vocal ability was unbelievable. The timing was right for a girl like that, a girl singer who had that kind of attitude, like, you know, you can't push me around attitude. I'm a take control girl. I'm a rock and roller, just like the boys. You have to realize that at that time there weren't that many girls who were rocking hard. It was mostly the guys, and the girls were delegated to other things.
And then on top of everything else, then you end up being a Tony Award-winning Broadway producer.
Sounds like I'm like 10 guys. But I worked on Broadway in the Brill Building in 1650, so I was always near the theaters. And I always loved theater. I thought musical theater was unbelievable. I saw all the shows at the time in the 60s. I saw Funny Girl and, you name it, I saw it. And I actually wrote a Broadway show once based on Herman Melville's Billy Budd. I wrote a rock musical, which opened and closed in one night. But it was an experience on Broadway, and I made lots of friends in theater, and they finally came to me after I was producing Manilow and doing other things and said, would you like to get involved in a couple of Broadway shows as producer? And I said, sure. The Schubert organization was involved with it. My friend James Lipton was involved with it. He got me involved. And my friend Manu Azenberg got me involved. So all of them, I knew they were winners. They knew what they're doing. I said, I'm in. And one of the first things we did was Ain't Misbehavin', which won the Best Musical of the Year and ran for 4 years and launched Nell Carter's career and was a monster hit for 10 years after that. So I won a couple of Tonys as producer. Gene Kelly gave me one. Angela Lansbury gave me the second one. So I was very fortunate that the Tony night was a very special night for me, but it was all together with music. It was all together with the thing I had chosen to do with my career. And as I said, I didn't turn down much. It really helps because you need to expose. You need to take chances in other areas sometimes.
Now, Ron, you got into disco as well, correct?
I did. I did a disco album called Dante's Inferno, which was I did some songs from my show Ain't Misbehavin'. The other show I invested in, they're playing our song, the Neil Simon musical. I loved disco when it came out. It was a great opportunity to take songs and re-envision them with a dance beat. And I thought disco was a very creative area. You could do a lot in that area. You could add jazz. You could add classical. You could add, of course, the beat was always dance beat for the clubs. But everything else on top of it that you layered on top of it was very exciting and creative. So I had a lot of fun with Dante's Inferno, and it gave me another leg up. I went to all the disco clubs and I tried the tracks out that I produced to see how the audience responded. It actually helped me when we did a dance version of Copacabana, because we remixed Copacabana, Manilow's Copacabana, for the club, and I went and I tried that out at the same time. And boy, it was an exciting moment when people started to dance to Copacabana. It was a great moment.
And then in the early 90s, you moved to L.A. and you got involved in television. Tell us about that.
Yes, L.A. was a hotbed of music activity, and I wanted to work for the Disney companies and the Warners and do some, music for their CDs that Disney puts out and get involved. I did some music for the Little Mermaid TV series, which was a lot of fun because you got to see the cartoon, and then you know that Ursula is going to be singing this, or the Little Mermaid is going to be singing that, and I produced some cuts on that. So it was a great place to be in L.A. because it's a center of the entertainment universe. It's a great place to be. I also put together some live shows from here, and I tour them around the country, back to the 60s and 70s type of shows.
Now, Ron, your entertainment career is still in full swing. You're still at it, correct?
I am still entertaining. I'm going to New York City to do a town hall on February 8th, which is a big Beatles tribute show. It's going to be about 20 acts will be on the bill, including Tommy James and one of the Beach Boys, and Melissa Manchester will be on the bill. Town hall, February 8th. It's going to be I'll be appearing on the bill with my friends and raising money for the Children's Hospital and things. It's going to be a very exciting moment. I also just completed one of my prime things was to do a classics album with Steve Lawrence, the great Steve Lawrence of Steve and Edie fame, and that album will be out February 11th on Curb Records. It's called When You Come Back to Me Again, and it's dedicated to his wife Edie. And I was very happy to work with Steve, one of the great voices of the past who still sounds like a kid. So that's going to be a very exciting moment. I'm always into something. I have a new company. With my partners, I have a company called TuneGo. TuneGo.com is going to be opening its doors in about 2 weeks for new and upcoming artists to get a chance to show their music to known professional producers. And so I'm busier now than I was 10 years ago. Amazing. I just love it.
And Ron, I would like to ask how Steve Lawrence is doing. I know he's coping over the loss of his wife, Edie Gourmet, and I know it's got to be a tough time for him.
He's doing okay. You know, this was a huge loss for him. And of over 50 years marriage and a professional relationship that they were Steve and Edie, the biggest duo of the century, I thought. And he's doing okay. He's very happy that he has this album, and he'll be on. And next week he'll be on. He did a guest spot on 2.5 Men, and he's going to get back into performing and carry on what he and Edie started. I'm sure. This was a tough loss for a good friend, and it takes some time to come back from that. He's a very, very deep man. He's got deep feelings, and he'll be okay. He's doing a special broadcast today on Sirius Radio for Seriously Sinatra channel for an hour, where they'll be debuting some cuts from the album. So people try to check that out for Steve Lawrence.
Now, Ron, for any information on you, we can go to your website, rondante.com.
Yes, and also Facebook me. I'm on Facebook. Just look for the picture of Archie and Veronica, because that's the one I use the most. But, because the other one's full. I have another one. I have 2 sites on there. But either rondante.com or Facebook me. And I check all my messages, and I love to read the postings. It's a very good time to keep in touch with the fan base, which I think is very important to anybody who's doing what I do.
Ron, thanks for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Ron Dante.
My pleasure, Mark.
Remember, everyone, please check out Ron's website. That's rondante.com. Or find him on Facebook. That's facebook.com for Ron Dante. That's it for us. For Who's Who Tonight, I'm Mark Bishop. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Who's Who Tonight with Mark Bishop. Visit us on YouTube and on Facebook, or go to our website, who'swhotonight.com.